Everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. And this one here, I want to break down episode 3 of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon season 3, and talk about a lot of the big reveals in this episode. There's actually 2 reveals that I would say were kind of shocking. I never thought we would actually get that in this show, and now that I'm thinking of, what happened earlier today with Andrew Lincoln's, talking about that there's conversations happening right now about his return to Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead, like that is so exciting, and it seems like they're teasing Rick's brother potentially, and there's also a triple P card reference, and so a lot to talk about in this episode here. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all of my Walking Dead content like this. Now, to start off in the very beginning of this episode, the king, I guess Torres, is asking Fede about his missing men, because there were people that went missing, obviously, I guess, by the shore or whatever, and then there was people missing the other day. And so, obviously, we know what happened. Daryl and Carol are pretty much responsible for that. Well, I will say probably mostly just Daryl, but this is causing a lot of issues there. And so, Torres is really upset about a lot of that. And Fede is just like, well, it has to be Daryl, right? And so, like, obviously, he wants to know and he wants to figure out some more stuff about the whole situation. But this really causes a lot of tension pretty much right away. But I will say, based off of where this goes by the end of the episode, I'm really wondering how this is going to matter overall, because it has to be one of those things where I guess Fede eventually finds out that El Alcazar, they're not going to be coming back at all, and Solaz Del Mar is going to be out of the alliance now. And so that's the only thing I can really think of. Fede finds out about that, and that causes a lot of issues. And so we'll have to wait and see where this goes. But that's what I'm thinking. I think that Torres honestly doesn't really put up with anything. And if there's issues like this coming up right away, he's just like, all right, you're out. That's it. We're gone. And that's pretty much it. But that's kind of what I'm thinking is happening here. Daryl in this episode really wants to make sure that they leave. He's just like, I don't want to help out at all. I just literally want to go. And so Carol, we see a lot in this episode. She's talking with Justina a lot, Antonio, and learning a lot about, I guess, the heart of the community and a lot of how people are feeling about a lot of things. And I think that it's obviously really feeling for a lot of the people here because they're going through a lot of stuff. And I think that literally what she was saying to Daryl, I think she wanted to get Daryl a little bit on her side and was like, they're human beings, they're people, we need to help them kind of thing. And Daryl's like, no, we don't, we gotta go, right? And even that line, who's Elba? It really just shows where both of them are at with all of this, right? Carol is actually paying attention to, everyone's names and wants to know, the people here. And Daryl's just he really does not care. He's here to basically, take whatever he can and then leave. He's not learning anyone's names. He's just literally trying to get through this community and leave. He's just trying to survive at this point here. And so that's why I laughed at that line where Daryl was like, yeah, and that solar panel, we're going to take that kind of thing. It was just wow, you really want to take everything here. You're just taking anything you can find, which obviously if you're trying to survive, that's smart, right? But it was just kind of shocking in this episode for some reason. And then we learn later on, obviously, the solar panel was meant for the theater that Antonio built, right? To actually watch movies. And so it's just Daryl, And so I think Carol, with all of this throughout the episode, was just kind of we need to help them out. We actually need to help them out. And I think Daryl was seeing a little bit of it. I don't think he's fully there, though. Honestly, I do think they're going to really, stay with the storyline that he just wants to go. And so maybe he does something to help someone out, but he basically is just no, we're going to go, right? And I think it is through Roberto. And we learned that sort of throughout the episode here. Daryl and Roberto go out to a lighthouse, and what's happening here is they want to repair the boat. And so I guess that woman might have been a boat expert or something, but she goes with Daryl and Roberto to go see the boat, and immediately she's like, no, that piece right there is completely done. You're going to have to replace that entirely. There's a lot of work that has to be done on this boat. And so Daryl's like, well, I guess we're going to have to go and do that. And so that's basically their story. They actually go to this location to find that piece. And the only deal that has to be made, I guess, in order for that to happen is Roberto and Justina go with Carol and Daryl back to America. And so that right there, I was like, that's really interesting because obviously I think Daryl and Carol will go back. But the question of will any characters go back? That's kind of, what I'm wondering about. And I do think that that could be something that we do see is maybe it's just Justina, just because I think Roberto's going to die this season. That's my prediction, but I could see a storyline like that happening. And yeah, I will say that whole entire thing there was really cool to actually see them, you know, at the boat, and like the whole Jaws kind of feel to it when they were in the water. It felt like there was a shark somewhere, like a zombie shark or something like that. And those walkers looked incredible. I think the whole sequence was really cool because it was very short. It wasn't going to be like this really cool, you know, whatever, a bunch of walkers everywhere. And it was just very like honest and to the point. Like there were walkers here, they took them out. It was really stressful to deal with. And then Daryl just kind of passes out afterwards. He's just like, oh, I'm tired, right? So also there was a Bruce Springsteen reference, so that was really cool. I had to mention that. Carol also mentioned something in this episode that I found really interesting. So it's actually before, I believe, she goes to the theater, and that's where, you know, obviously she talks with Antonio about the movie that they're watching. There was actually a Jerry reference there as well, which was really cool. But the reference here that I found really interesting, and I'll do a video talking about this a lot more in depth later on, but it's the reference to Rick Grimes' brother. And so, again, we don't know if this is Rick Grimes' brother, but what Carol says in this episode is, I think Antonio mentioned something about Barcelona. And so Carol's like, oh, Barcelona? I had a friend whose brother used to live there, like before, I guess, the apocalypse kind of thing, right? And right there, I was like, wait a minute. That is literally a reference to Rick Grimes' brother. Like, that might not be maybe Rick's brother. Maybe it's somebody else, but that's literally like, that's a reference to, you know, the comics anyways, and Rick Grimes' brother actually, you know, living in Barcelona before the apocalypse started. I mean, obviously being there throughout the apocalypse, and the character did die in the comics, but that is a big reference right there. Like, literally what she said right there is equivalent to what Laurie says in the comics. And so now I look at both the Walking Dead show and the comics basically kind of being on par with each other in terms of, you know, the Rick Grimes brother story. And so, like, I don't know if they're going to be doing this storyline at all, but that was a reference to that. And so maybe it's possible in season 4. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't know what else that could have meant. Like, maybe it's someone else. Like, again, it could literally be any one of her friends, right? It could literally be anybody at the Commonwealth that she has talked to that, you know, maybe had a brother that lived in Barcelona. And so I think it's kind of hilarious. Honestly, I do think that they knew what they were doing. Like, they're going to Spain. They know that Rick's brother is something that does come up a lot. And I think that that is something that is actually like, it's a thing. Like, she was talking about Rick's brother, or it's for sure just a reference to The Walking Dead, the alien, and that's pretty much it. And so it was a really cool reference, I would say. Honestly, an Easter egg to that moment, I think, is definitely really smart, because, like, that's really the end of it right there. I think that is actually awesome, because, like, you don't want to ignore it, right? Like, you're having the characters in Spain, and so having a line like that is just like, oh, okay, so maybe the possibility is there. It creates a little bit of excitement, right? So I found that to be really cool, and yeah. We actually did get some scenes of the Daryl flashback scene, which was really surprising. I was not expecting to see that right away, but there was actual scenes of Daryl's flashback. I think that at some point, obviously in the next 4 episodes, we'll see exactly what that is. But yeah, they actually showed us a little bit in this episode. There was also a reference to the Triple P card. So Scott Gimple is now doing this again, where we actually have a Triple P card reference here. And so, I mean, it's not a card, but it's a jacket and it has the Triple P on it. And so right there, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Obviously, it's likely a reference. I don't know if, you know, because it's on that type of a jacket that, or vest, that maybe that means something specifically. Like, the items that the Triple P are showing up on, is that a hint at something? Like, Gimple has confirmed that he knows what the story is likely going to be. Like, he talked about that in the last couple of years, where he mentioned something about, like, working on a story like that, and he has it, like, on a shelf or something like that. So, like, maybe it's all worked out and he's teasing something for the future. There were some talks, obviously, today, very early on today, about, you know, Andrew Lincoln saying that there's conversations happening right now about his return as Rick Grimes. And so, like, is that all connected here? I feel like a lot of it is a lot more intentional now. And yeah, just a really cool reference. I think that maybe Scott Gimple is like, you know what, we have to get into this now, and we're not gonna, like, just drop this, because I know that, at least I was criticizing that anyways. Like, it just felt like they were constantly either, you know, just teasing a lot of that, or just, like, really going nowhere with it. Like, even in The Ones Who Live, in the finale, they teased it. So it's like, what does that mean, right? But the story here builds up to a final moment where obviously Justina's storyline throughout the whole episode is she finds like, those pieces of cloth or whatever where her name is like stitched on there. And, her whole thing is like, why have I not been taken? Like, I don't even have parents, this and that. And Alba, she has a mom, and like, all these other women have like parents and people around here that care about them. Like, for me, I don't have parents, this and that. And I think she felt really guilty and obviously volunteered to go. And so that's kind of, I guess, what it was the big moment in this episode, right? Was Justina leaves and El Alcazar just left Solaz del Mar, and now Fede is really upset about that, and we'll see where things go. It does seem like, Daryl and Carol caused a lot of stuff in this community very, very fast, and there's going to be a lot of issues here. So I'm so excited for episode 4 because we have Daryl and Roberto going back there. Like, Roberto's going to react to this, and he's not going to take it well at all. And I also want to mention a couple of other Easter eggs. They're kind of small Easter eggs, but Daryl was talking about Ohio. Like, obviously the Commonwealth are in Ohio, so that was really cool. Daryl also leaves a Rubik's Cube at that place there where the Triple P card was, and that was for Laurent, and he does mention that, like, maybe he has a new one by now. Obviously, if Laurent made it back to the Commonwealth, right? So overall, this episode was a really great episode. I think that it really moved the story along, I would say, within Solaz del Mar, because the first 2 episodes were really, really great. I would say this one's probably not, I guess, my favorite out of the 3, but obviously, I mean, you can't have every episode being your favorite, right? But I'm just saying that, like, the first 2 episodes are really, really good. This one is really good, but I think the job of this episode was really just to sort of move the story along a little bit, right? And to get the characters to, I guess, have an actual reason for being there still when Daryl gets back. And so it did that now. Now, episode 4, we're going to see how Roberto reacts and where things go from there. And then episode 5 is the one I'm really looking forward to, which is the big action episode, right? So we'll have to wait and see how all that builds up to that. But I'm starting to see how a lot of this does kind of build to that. I think that in episode 4, Daryl is going to sort of make the decision that, like, yeah, we got to help them out. And that's going to be that. Like, Daryl's going to go and help them out. And then, I mean, I think it might be one of those things where it's like, yeah, we have to help them out, but then we're leaving. And, I think it's probably going to be something like that. But how does Fede respond to a lot of that? And yeah, there's a lot of that. But anyways, I'm going to leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.